Hi, this is Vicki Van Tuyle. I'm an associate professor at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and I teach aspiring principals and superintendents in the Department of Educational Leadership. I'm happy you are interested in hearing about my research. In this presentation, I will share with you the results of over nearly 100 assistant principals' responses to Hallinger's Principal Instructional Management Rating Scale, the PIMRS, which provides the perceptions assistant principals have about their instructional leadership. But allow me first to provide you with some background about my interest in this particular area. For 10 years, I've taught aspiring principals seeking an endorsement in Illinois. During this time, I also contributed to the redesign of our principal preparation program with a focus on changing the development of principals from being a manager to being an instructional leader. So I am familiar with the intent of the redesign to ensure that principals are focused on improvement of instruction to increase levels of achievement for all students. Now let me share with you the story of one student from our very first cohort in the new program. Following graduation, he had several interviews for assistant principal positions. This student unhappily reported back to his program professors that in one of the schools where he applied and interviewed for an assistant principal job, he was taken to a room with several monitors which had views of several hallways and doorways and was told he would spend most of his time in here watching the cameras. His takeaway was, there's something wrong with this picture. If I must spend a number of years of my professional life not applying what I have learned about curriculum and instruction, but handling discipline. So in my next group of students and in all my classes, I now ask students to provide the 3 most typical reasons students are sent by teachers from instructional classrooms to the office to see a person of authority, either the principal and in many schools, the assistant principal. The students submit a variety of reasons. These include no school ID being worn, cell phone usage. My aspiring principals deem these as poor reasons for being sent to the office and to miss instructional classroom time because they are school policies, procedures, and practices that should never interfere with instruction. As well, students cite physical aggression, physical fighting. Because these may endanger others, they are reasons to have students leave the classroom. But in many of my groups of aspiring students, the principals list overwhelmingly include large numbers of referrals for defiance, insubordination, and disrespect. I often suggest to students, I know what a fight looks like, but what does defiance, insubordination, and disrespect look like? They tell me it looks different for different teachers. They look like students are not prepared for class, they are refusing to do work, and they're sleeping. Students tell me that many teachers perceive these to be disrespectful, but it is heartening to hear my aspiring principals discuss what the teacher perhaps is not considering when a student looks like this in the classroom. It may be the student is not able to do the work. The student is in 6th grade language arts, but not able to read at 6th grade level. It may be the student is not socially or emotionally engaged in school. The student is isolated by peers, bullies, or marginalized, perhaps in a particular class. It may be the student is not able to complete homework because of lack of home and family resources and support. And it may be because the student is failing anyway, and it's just another day out of class. When I allow aspiring principals to talk about this, they often conclude, these are not discipline problems. These are instructional problems or institutional issues that the teachers, the administrator, and the culture of the organization have not addressed or dealt with. How an assistant principal views or understands the reason a student is sent from the classroom to the office, either as a student's discipline issue or as a teacher's instructional improvement issue, may be the tipping point between an assistant principal assuming just the role of a disciplinarian or assuming the role of the instructional leader. So let's move on to take a look at what the PIMRS is about. Of the 50 items on this rating scale, the respondents scored things: 5, meaning they had this practice almost always; 4, they had this practice frequently; 3, sometimes; 2, seldom; and 1, almost never. The conceptual framework for the PIMRS included 3 dimensions, broad dimensions. The first one defining mission, which had 2 functions: framing the school goals and communicating the school goals. And then you will notice to the left, or to the right of that column, are the 5 items which the respondents had to respond to and rate on that scale. Dimension 2 had to do with managing instruction. It includes supervision and evaluation, curriculum coordination, and monitoring student progress. And you see there are 15 items that correspond to those 3 functions. And Dimension 3, developing the school climate, includes protecting instructional time, maintaining high visibility, providing incentives for teachers, promoting professional development, and providing incentives for learning. And you see the 25 items then that are found in that dimension. The conceptual, in this slide, I will show you how the job titles that the respondents had in this particular group of individuals. You can see that the largest group, of course, was assistant, associate, or vice principal. I think that by disaggregating data according to job title, you can sometimes get a clear understanding of the degree to which these individuals are instructional leaders or disciplinarians. You will notice that protecting, let's go on to the next slide. Frequencies and percentages of APs by gender. Looks similar to what we see nationwide in administration. Next one is frequency and percentages of APs by grade span. And here you see that the greatest percentage is at the high school level and 23% at upper elementary and junior high school. And I do think there has been a little bit of an increase in assistant principals operating in pre-K and elementary. For years of experience, over 50% had experience of 4 years or under. And then looking at the descriptive statistics here for the PMRS for APs at the dimension levels, you'll notice that the mean here is really fairly close through all 3 of these dimensions. And this mean really means that they're balanced somewhere between sometimes and not so, sometimes operating in these areas. The PIMRS job functions, when we look at the means for these individual job functions, actually do show that they are reaching a higher level of practicing these things, because the highest means are in supervising and evaluating instruction and in protecting instructional time. So next I'm going to go through the individual functions and look at the item level. And in function 1, framing the school goals, the highest mean is 3.89, indicating that sometimes student performance data is used to develop academic school goals. I think we would agree that we would like to see that in the more frequently or almost always level. In communicating the school goals, again, the 3.78 indicates they're operating in the sometimes level, where curricular decisions are aligned with school academic goals. In function 3, supervising and evaluating instruction, it is good to see that this is now 4.35, which indicates frequently, which would indicate practicing instructional leadership. In function 4, coordinating the curriculum, again, the mean slips down to 3.66 in the sometimes range. In function 5, monitoring student progress, the highest mean is 3.53, operating in the sometimes range. And in function 6, encouraging teachers to use, protecting instructional time, encouraging teachers to use instructional time for teaching and practicing new skills and concepts. And when I read that, I wish that it said not just to encourage teachers, but to ensure that teachers use instructional time for teaching and practicing new skills and concepts. But again, it rises to the level of frequently being done. For maintaining high visibility, which is function 7, again, it's in the frequently range, and it indicates that assistant principals take time to talk informally with students and teachers during breaks, and we assume that they are visible. Function 8, provide incentives for teachers, also indicates operating in the frequently range. They compliment teachers privately for their efforts or performance. Function 9, promoting professional development. Asking APs that they ensure that in-service activities attended by staff are consistent with the school goals. Again, this is operating in the sometimes range, which again creates a question about the degree to which APs are actually involved in professional development. And in function 10, providing incentives for learning, the highest mean is at 3.85, recognizing students who do superior work with formal rewards, such as an honor roll or mention in the principal's newsletter. To conclude what I've presented, the AP's perceptions of themselves as instructional leaders has resulted in a mean of 3.5 in each of the 3 dimensions, which is between sometimes and frequently acting on the items in the 10 functions. So the AP's perceptions of themselves as instructional leaders has resulted in a mean of 3.8 in 2 of the 10 job functions, supervising and evaluating instruction and protecting instructional time, which is closer to frequently as opposed to the sometimes range. So this is encouraging. This has been just a very brief overview of the PIRS results for nearly 100 APs. The analysis is very far-reaching considering the variables and the possible intersections of the variables, but the outcomes lead to recommending that principals, superintendents, and boards of education ensure that their APs are leading instruction at the almost always level, which may result disciplining students at the seldom level. Thank you for your time. Take care and be safe.